You're listening to The Manning Report with your host, James David Manning. The news behind the headlines.
I want to raise the question here today about what is so good about Kim Jong-Un. Let me ask you a question. I received the feedback from a woman named April Discernis or something of that nature, and who blasted me for blasting Tribulation Trump. But what would you think of me if all of a sudden I said, well, I think I ought to sit down with Al Sharpton. I think I ought to sit with Reverend Al. I think we ought to try to come together. I think we ought to try to find a common denominator. I think maybe we got more that brings us together than separates us. I think I ought to have a talk with Al, and I'm going to send Al a message, and then after that I'm going to see if I can sit down with the Reverend Jesse Jackson. I think Reverend Jesse Jackson is a strong leader and has been a strong leader, walked with Dr. King. And I think I meet James David Manning, the ATLAH ministry and everybody. I think I ought to sit down and try to reason with Jesse and see if we could reason together. Or I think I ought to sit down and try to reason with Obama. I think I ought to sit down and talk with him. So, I think, what would you think of me? Well, what would you think of me if I said, Al is nice, and then I start this relationship with Al, I go down to the Action Network, and then we talk Al, and then Al write me a letter. And Al write me a letter saying, Pastor Manning, I think you're really a nice guy working up there in Harlem and everything, doing a good job, and we're both leaders. And then I invite Al, I say, Al, well, why don't you come up to the ATLAH World Mission Church on Saturday and preach to the congregation? And just go ahead and just turn the pulpit over to Al. And you say, well, Pastor Man, you done lost your mind. You crazy, boy. What's wrong with you? Why you? I said, well, Al wrote me a letter. Al's very nice to me. You said, well, Pastor Man, and Al Sharpton, that man is a hustler. He's a convicted drug dealer. He's known as number CI7. He sold heroin to his own people. He's a sellout artist. He's a FBI snitch. Plus, he's a hustler. All he wants is money. He don't care nothing about his people. And you, Pastor Manning, you going to say he's a good man? Pastor Manning, have you gone crazy? You're going to let him come and preach in your church, and then you're going to stand up and tell the world that Al is a good man. Al is a former drug dealer. Number CI7. Hustler. Tawana Brawley. Lied and sued. Don't pay his debts. And Pastor, have you lost your mind? What's wrong with you? You done lost your mind, Pastor? Well, no, I'm not going to invite Al. But let me tell you who does something just like that, and all you rednecks out there worship him, shows that you are absolutely stone cold without God, you Trump supporter. Because Trump worships Kim Jong-Un. Kim Jong-Un is a dictator. He keeps his people completely oppressed. He kills family members, relatives at will. Have absolute authority. Nobody in his government or in his country of North Korea can say anything except without the threat of death. And yet, Tribulation Trump says he's a good man. He wrote me a letter. We fell. Trump says of Kim Jong-un, we fell in love. What a damn fool. Trump saying he's in love with Kim Jong-un. But if I said that about Al Sharpton, you rednecks would be jumping up and down like a bunch of frogs on a hot tin roof. But there's a young freshman congressman in Congress who can say this a whole lot better than me. I'm going to ask the engineer if he would roll up that tape and let you take a look at a more eloquent way of presentation of this folly. You white people are sick as hell following Trump. Roll it, Mr. Engineer.
Mike Pompeo's turn to learn what it's like to go up against the freshman Democrats. This time he was facing one of the most experienced of the freshman Democrats, a veteran of the Obama State Department, Congressman Tom Malinowski of New Jersey. And Tom Malinowski has been deeply outraged every time President Trump has said this about the murderous communist dictator of North Korea.
He likes me, I like him. Some people say, oh, you shouldn't like him. I said, why shouldn't I like him?
What's to like? That was Tom Malinowski's question today for Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. What's to like about the dictator who has murdered countless numbers of his own people and held Otto Warmbier in custody and tortured him before sending him home to die? What's to like? In the House Foreign Affairs Committee today, Tom Malinowski had a chance to question Donald Trump's Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo.
If we're going to be so forceful in denouncing socialism, why is the administration so high on communism?
Yeah, I mean, the very statement there is pretty outrageous.
Well, I'm talking about North Korea, sir. The most perfectly realized communist state in history, a country where the state owns everything and everyone, and yet the administration is repeatedly referring to how it has, quote, awesome economic potential, how it can become an economic powerhouse, quote unquote, without changing its system, simply by giving up nuclear weapons.
Congressman Malinowski was just getting warmed up.
I'm asking because there's a whole lot of rhetoric about liking Kim Jong-un, falling in love with Kim Jong-un being our friend. Mm-hmm. And so let me ask you, why is liking Kim Jong-un a sufficient reason to cancel or not to pursue sanctions against companies helping his nuclear program, as the White House said last week? I'm quoting the White House there.
There have been more sanctions put in place by this administration with a global coalition than at any time in the world's history, sir.
And yet liking him is cited as a reason not to do more.
Last week, President Trump tweeted that he was going to undo some sanctions on North Korea. The White House press secretary then issued a statement saying President Trump likes Chairman Kim, and he doesn't think these sanctions will be necessary.
Is Kim Jong-un responsible for maintaining North Korea's system of labor camps?
He's the leader of the country.
Is he responsible for ordering the execution of his uncle, the assassination by chemical agent of his half-brother?
He's the leader of the country.
Was he responsible for the decision not to allow Otto Warmbier to come home until he was on death's door?
I'll leave the president's statement to stand. He made that statement. We all know that the North Korean regime was responsible for the tragedy that occurred to Otto Warmbier. I've met that family. I know those people. I love them dearly. They suffered mightily, sir.
So what's to like?
They suffered mightily, sir.
So what's to like about Kim Jong-un?
Sir, don't make this a political football. It's inappropriate. It's inappropriate to do.
Well, when the White House says that sanctions decisions are based on liking Kim Jong-un.
Political football. That's what Mike Pompeo calls the question, so what's to like about Kim Jong-un? Mike Pompeo knows the answer to that question is nothing. But Mike Pompeo also knows that he could lose his job for telling that one-word truth in today's hearing. Mike Pompeo was terrified to tell that truth in that hearing today, because Donald Trump allows his appointed officials just about as much freedom of speech as Kim Jong-un allows in North Korea.
Now, it's very obvious. Kim Jong-un is a dictator, a thug who kills with impunity, runs labor camps, a sadist. And yet the Southern Baptist preachers, the evangelical, and a host of highly uneducated white men and white people embraces Triple H and Trump and loves him, and therefore vicariously also embrace and support Kim Jong-un. It is sick as hell. And it really means this. Now, I want you to listen to this very carefully. The Southern Baptist Trump supporter will just brush this off as if it has no meaning whatsoever. However, were I speaking as flowingly and glowingly and lovingly about a relationship with Al Sharpton, their heads would be exploding were that the case. This is a bit of a news blog we do, looking at spiritual wickedness in high places for the most part, making some observations about it and giving people a biblical foundation to the way of interpreting, rather than have Sean Hannity or Laura Ingraham or Janine Pirro or Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon, Rush Limbaugh interpret what's going on in the world. You come to me and I'll tell you based on what the Word of God says. They'll just give you their worldly, sinful view. But the Manning Report will tell you what God has said, whether to say yea or nay, whether to go or to stay. You'll be led by the word of Almighty God. Come to the Manning Report on a daily basis to interpret the spiritual wickedness in high places, because there's plenty of it that's going on. And so I'm the Lord's servant, James David Righteous Rebel Manning, and I'm here to serve you with news and information.